Hey Greg, I
Yeah.
loved your breakdown of the defense. I was kind of
Hey, Chris.
wondering with Jahad Campbell, kind of the range and instincts that he showed. Do you see like them doing something differently to kind of make up for some of the deficiencies on the back end, as far as like still not knowing who the number two is, with Adoree kind of struggling? Like when they have two rangy linebackers, what can they do to cover some of that up if those guys can handle more?
Well, you can't really make up for corners outside the numbers. So, that, I mean, if you're talking about stuff inside, possibly. So, and we'll see. It's game one. Um, you know, I think I think they knew when they brought in Bennett that they probably were a little uncertain about Adoree Jackson, because I think it's been pretty clear that they don't believe that Kelee Ringo is good enough to be the starter, or he'd be the starter at this point. Um, we'll see how it continues. But you can't really, in the context of a defense, you can't really make up for your corners with your linebackers. That's just not really possible.
My question for you is, and again, we didn't get to hear the offensive side, so I want to ask you about the offensive line. I thought I thought Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson, from the naked eye, looked like they kind of struggled. And I wanted to get your thoughts on how, especially the left side of the offensive line played.
Well, it's funny you say that, Frank, because I actually thought that Cam Jurgens was the guy who struggled the most. I even thought Lane Johnson had some tough snaps and pass protection, which is very rare to see. It was not the best performance by the offensive line. It's week one. They won the game. You could argue that this game was very similar to the way they played a year ago. So, in many ways, offensively, even though the O line did not have a great game overall, it was kind of the way the Eagles play. I mean, they rarely throw for a ton of yards.
So what do you think about our other rookie at safety? How you think he played today, Sunday? Excuse me,
Makuba?
Thursday.
Makuba?
Yes.
I thought Makuba played well.
Okay.
The one thing about Makuba, and you notice this in college, and this translates, is he just sees the game fast. He's really good playing downhill. He's got an incredibly quick trigger. He understands route concepts. He's just one of those guys. That's who he is. But he's a good player.
Did you see the blown coverage that Vic was talking about this morning? He was saying that he had a couple of blown coverages. Did you see that?
I'd have to know the play, only
Okay.
because he could be talking about blown coverages on plays where, you know how coaches are. It could be on plays where nothing happened, and so I don't know those plays.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and if nothing happened on the play, that was a big play, so to speak.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I might not know it was a blown coverage.
Okay. Okay. You're saying so it could have been a where he wanted him to be and he wasn't there, no matter if the ball was thrown to him or not.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm concerned about AJ Brown's health, like Landon's health with his knees. Have you seen anything in the tape to say maybe he's losing a step or we should be concerned?
So I don't know if we know the answer to that, Dan, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know. Guys want to play. So, I don't, there have been games in his career here where AJ Brown has not been targeted, and then he usually lets someone know about it, and then he gets targeted. So, one game, I'm not willing to say that there's something
Fair.
wrong. The way this game kind of played out, but I can't imagine that AJ Brown's going to have one target against the Chiefs on Sunday.
So I wanted to ask you, when looking at the tape, did you see anything good, bad, and different from Calcaterra and Granson?
Well, I would say this, and they'll know this, and it'll be interesting to see what they do going forward. Is Calcaterra, they played a lot of 12 personnel, and they asked him to block as an attached tight end, and he was not very good at it. In fact, he had 3 or 4 plays where he was bad at it. So Granson will not be asked to be an inline blocker. He's never been that guy, and he's not big enough. They had 21 plays in 12 personnel and 30 plays in 11 personnel. Now, that when it's week one, you never know if that's specific to an opponent. You never know if that's the way they want to play. You don't know that until they get further into the season. But they could look at Calcaterra and say he just had a bad game, or they could look at Calcaterra and say, you know what, he's not really the guy we want blocking defensive ends in the run game. And we won't know the answer to that, Mark, until we get to next game. Because you know what, he's going to be playing against guys like Karlaftis, on Sunday, and Karlaftis is a very good player and a very physical player. Even Mark Dana is a very physical player, even though he's not super big. He's very physical. So we'll get an idea of how they see that on Sunday.
How did Hunt and Smith hold up as starters for the first time, kind of full-time starters? Did they look like they could handle the load, or did they look like they were rusty
Well,
week one, kind of? Or
I think they're counting on Smith because he came on last year. There'll be games where he's not a big factor just because he's smaller, and there'll be games where just the physicality could eat him up a little bit. He did have some good pass rushes on Steele in this game. Um, I think they've told you that Jalix Hunt is not quite ready to be that guy because they played Josh Uche 20 snaps and he flashed throughout the game. And they signed this week's Adarius Smith. So I think they're telling you that they believe that Hunt's not quite ready to be that guy on the edge. And don't forget, Carter wasn't in there, so they played with three defensive tackles. Jomo did not have a really good game. I know he had a really good camp, and I don't think this will mean that they're not going to play him meaningful snaps, but he did not have a really good game. And I think the other D tackles, they probably don't really feel are ready to play meaningful snaps. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Jordan Davis because with Carter back, Davis played 53 snaps, which was the second most snaps he's ever played in the NFL. And my guess is they did not anticipate him doing that if Carter was playing. But Davis played at such a high level and even showed some good pass rush. They may feel that, hey, we can play him 40, 45 snaps and we can use him on third down. I guess we'll see how that goes. But I think they're telling you, teams sort of tell you how they feel about players in what they do and how they use their players. So with the fact that they sign two things, the fact that Uche played so many snaps and the fact that they signed Zadarius Smith, I think tells you that they're a little uncertain about Jalix Hunt right now as a pass rusher.
I've heard a lot about Adoree Jackson getting cooked. We didn't see it, or was that the worst of it? Because I'm thinking, Kansas City probably doesn't have. I know they don't have somebody as good as CeeDee Lamb. Is Adoree going to be serviceable if he's going against somebody, or is this going to be? Are we going to be seeing more of this every game until we find a replacement for him?
Well, the way I'd answer that is this. First of all, I do watch every play, and you have to understand that obviously not on every play do corners, even if they're struggling at times, that they get beat on every play. That just doesn't happen. Just like an offensive lineman, if he's struggling, he doesn't get beat on 65 plays. But I don't think Kansas City, in this game against the Cowboys, the Eagles clearly made a decision that they were going to have Mitchell, for the most part, travel with George Pickens. Now, I'm obviously not in the meeting rooms with Vic Fangio, but my guess is there's not likely a Chiefs wideout that they would think that Mitchell has to travel with. Now, again, I don't know that, but that would be my guess. So the Cowboys had two really tough wide receivers. Pickens is let's put aside what we've read about his character and all that. I don't care about that. I'm not talking about that. Pickens, in terms of pure physical traits, is probably a top 7-8 receiver in the league. And then you got CeeDee Lamb, who may well be a top 5 receiver. So Adoree Jackson often had to match up, not all the time, because Lamb does line up in the slot, but when Lamb did line up outside in specific situations, Adoree Jackson had to match up to him. That's not a great matchup for Adoree. Is he going to get beat every single time? No, but it's not a really good matchup. And there were certain plays that the Cowboys handled really well, like that 3rd and 1, where the 34-yarder down inside the red zone. It was 3rd and 1. They shifted or motioned Lamb tighter to the formation. They gave him a two-way go. Adoree Jackson was kind of stuck. That's a tough cover right there. Is he going to get beat by everybody all the time? No, of course not. They'll decide how they feel about his overall play. Unless, Jeff, you have other information, it's only Tuesday. Obviously,
No.
I assume he'll still be the starter on Sunday. We don't know that, but that would be my guess. All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Greg.
We'll do it again next week.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
a lot, Greg.
Thank you,
All right,
Greg. Looking
thanks,
forward
guys.
to it.
Appreciate it.